talking about legalizing all drugs. It was like 1987 or something, and the DARE campaign was heavy back
Mm-hmm.
then. To say
I
no to
had a T-shirt
drugs,
as a kid.
yeah. And she was a guardian angel because she was the girlfriend or the wife or whatever she was at the time to the
Mm-hmm.
leader, and she is just there like going in about how stupid he is, that
Mm-hmm.
drugs are bad, and what do we want, the kids this, the kids that. It
Mm-hmm.
was really crazy to see her speak the way she was speaking and then now see her where she's at. I forgot why I brought that all up, but because Ron Paul also would talk about the beneficials of hemp,
Mm-hmm.
and because I didn't know hemp was something that could be used to build. It could be used for so much things.
Hello, everyone. I'm Pammy from the Psychedelic Sisterhood. I'm here with Pilar Dejesus. She is the founder of What the Fungi. It's an educational service to teach people about psilocybin mushrooms and maybe mushrooms in general, because there's a bunch of
Yeah,
kinds I don't know about.
they all have
and,
benefits.
yeah, and she'll tell you. Yeah, and we're gonna get started and tell me how you first came into, I guess, into mushrooms and how it became something important in your life.
But thank you for having me.
Mhm.
Yeah, fungi is just amazing. All types, happy and non-happy. I mean, I shouldn't say non-happy. Happy and gourmet. Yeah. All kinds. There's so many
But
out
all
there.
delicious.
Yeah, and all provide a different benefit. You'd be
Mhm.
surprised how many benefits that we need, that we purchase pharmaceutical drugs for, but all
Mhm.
you just need to do is get some mushroom, or depending on the issue, just get a mushroom. But yeah, so how I initially first my first experience was in 2019, a little after I was involved in a raid and spent a little time on
Mhm.
Rikers Island. A friend of mine, had a bag of mushrooms, what they called vegan at the time, and I was like, "What are vegan mushrooms?" But now I think I understand. They were not, grown on poop, manure of a cow or of a
Oh.
horse.
Mhm.
I think they were like just on coffee grinds or something non animal related. And so I had them, and a few of us came, and we would like set up the living room. And I was like first worried because I was like, no, what if this is gonna do to me? I had like all these like bad ideas about it.
Mhm.
Um, but when we took it that first day, I really, and it could be partially because I was also drinking, but I didn't feel like it had any effect on me. And
Mhm.
I don't even know what species it was, but I was like, oh, this didn't do anything. And then, like, as a couple of months went by, I started accessing them more.
Mhm.
Some that were like, I guess, not vegan, um, so I think it was Penis Envy was no Golden Teachers were my first ones, and then Penis
Mhm.
Envy, and then I had an LSD experience when I went to see the Joker, and so that day too, like everything was enhanced, and I was like, wow, I really like this. I felt really good, and my work outside of my organization that I founded is I wear 1,000 hats, so it's pretty intense and mentally exhausting.
Mhm.
And so I just like the way it made me feel, and so I started taking more psilocybin, not so much LSD, but more mushrooms, and started like learning a lot more, talking to people who enjoyed taking it, because that was another thing. I was like, oh my god, like how are people gonna look at me if I say I take
Mhm.
mushrooms? Which I still get that effect with some people in my community.
Really?
Yeah,
Mhm.
there's this culture, at least Latino, and I mean, probably old traditional, my ancestors, yes, but like my mom, my grandmother would
Mhm.
know. Um, so I was just like, so I started taking them more, and then I did more research. I asked folks who were growing them, for educational purposes, to just like share where should I start, and they like direct me to, Paul Stigmas, and they directed
Mhm.
me to like Terrence McKean, Kina, and I started like learning more and more, and I'm still learning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then taking them more, and then really noticing the benefits that it's been doing for me mentally,
Mm-hmm.
and just a lot of things. I still, I mean, a lot better. I deal with it much better now, but PTSD from being in prison for even the short time that I was there, but my house being raided and 20
Mm-hmm.
cops and guns in my face,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
um, you know, just a lot of things that going through in life, being a tenant in advocacy. So fighting against the evictions that are happening to my clients and
Mm-hmm.
just the real violent harm that landlords are doing against them. And then on top of just everything else. So I've been being very mindful of my spirit and,
Mm-hmm.
just doing my own little rituals. Nothing I haven't read a book if I'm doing it right or wrong, but it makes me feel good.
I
And
mean, honestly, I think that's the right way. I think if you're looking to read books or, watch 1,000 videos, but like, which is the right way? I think that's already the wrong move. I think you really have to just try whatever you try and see what works.
yeah, so I would take shrooms. I would microdose mostly.
Mm-hmm.
I even had at one point capsules. I also, provide capsules for those who, are trying to heal from maybe depression or something, that is causing them really harm to their mental health where they're not even motivated to do anything or whatever. But I started microdosing and I started seeing the benefits and just the way it's for lack of a better term, just started feeling more happy, in
Mm-hmm.
this crazy life that we're dealing with, especially COVID and, police killings, police killing our people. It's just been easier to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
I guess to say, and just really being more connected also with the universe and, myself
Mm-hmm.
and my powers and just trying to keep a positive mind even though we're dealing with a lot and just also trying to it's a healing it's a healing it's funny, it's not a plant, it's not meat, fungi specifically.
Mm-hmm.
um you know it's this greatness, it's this
Mm-hmm.
healing greatness. So, yeah, so now I have a good relationship. I grow them for myself. Um, and they're amazing. And, it's also amazing to watch them grow. It's like fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long does it take mushrooms to grow usually? And all species are the same as far as growth?
No, they're all different and they all
Mm-hmm.
like require different, temperature, humidity,
Mm-hmm.
attention, and some are slower than others. My first one, which was it was pretty fast. I mean, fast saying that from the beginning of the process to the end, it only took maybe 2 months, 2 months for like the
Uh,
beginning. There's a lot of
yeah.
steps.
Yeah, yeah.
But my recent one, I don't know what's going on. They're like being extra slow, and
Really?
I put them.
That means it's gonna be a little bit extra in it once they
Yeah, I guess.
grow. Yeah, they're taking their
Yeah.
time. They're
They're
like,
taking their sweet
it's gonna be
time, and I'm like, okay.
good.
And I'm just wondering, though, I hope they're okay. So
Mm.
I'm like, are you guys okay? Do you need water? What is it? Like, because again,
A glass of
you have to
water, need a nap. I mean, are
something.
you
What
good?
is it? Should I bring the sounds in?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, do you play music for your plants?
yeah, I play
Yeah,
like
that's
Amazon sounds. I mean, I love them
oh.
myself,
Mm-hmm.
but I try to be mindful to get the sound closer to the room if I'm not in the room,
Mm-hmm.
so that they could, hear like they feel like they're at home.
Yeah, yeah. That's
You know.
awesome. I love that. So you started learning about mushrooms with Paul Stamets and Terrence McKenna. What was it about Paul Stamets that drew you to like his story and everything?
I mean, he does have like this amazing story about his first time,
Mm-hmm.
that he got on a tree during a thunderstorm and he had a stuttering problem at that time and he just like really focused
Mm-hmm.
on what he wanted, what was his he focused on what he wanted out of that experience and like what
Mm-hmm.
he and from the way he tells his story, it helped him with his stuttering problem, and his stuttering problem ended that day. Also, I
Mm-hmm.
know, he's worked with other, not just happy mushrooms, but other gourmet mushrooms that, again, that have these health benefits that have helped with his mom's
Yeah.
cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so just him explaining, and the way he explains also the fungi and
Mm-hmm.
mycelium, it was really, I enjoyed it, easy for me to understand. I have some learning disabilities, so the way I learn, some people like tend to just go off and off and like don't explain in clear words what they mean, and
Mm-hmm.
they assume
Mm-hmm.
what this means because they're in it, and so they forget that sometimes. So I felt
Yeah.
he did a really good job in breaking it down for me where I could understand. And then
Mm.
in the documentary Fantastic Fungi, it's a great visual, so then it just makes my eyes even
Yeah.
happy
Me
watching.
too. Same. Like I feel like, getting into mushrooms, I really didn't know much about them or, what happens exactly when you take them. And I think that documentary really kind of like broke it down in such a way that it was like I didn't have to watch it over and over. You know what I mean? It was like really simple. And also like the love for mushrooms that
Yeah,
Stamets shows, like he really cares about it. Like, the mushrooms, really cares about each species that he takes care of. And I forget the name of his company that he has. It was it in is it in Washington or somewhere in the Northwest, but he really really cares, and I think he was even working on some sort of formula to see if it can combat COVID, but I don't know if he's officially done that. I don't know if he can officially say he could
uh,
cure COVID with it, but
that's interesting. I
um
heard that one. I knew about the oil, help with oil spills, using
oh
oyster
really.
mushrooms to help with oil spills.
mm, that's important. What is it, like sucks it up, or I'm not sure how
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it sucks it up, and I forgot what he said, but it was just
I
pretty
have to look at it.
miraculous, how that works. And so I was like, you see, they're just not only for health benefits, they're
A lot of
environmentally
things.
great.
Yeah, yeah. And that's kind of how I feel about hemp as well, because it's like, yeah, you can smoke, marijuana, but also with hemp, it's like it's good for rope, it's good for paper, it's good for clothing, it's good for a lot of different things, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's good for
I would.
protein powder. Yeah.
It's good for after death,
Mhm.
for us, one of my goals, I have like 1,000 ideas of all these businesses I want to start, or like work
Mhm.
with the community to build out. But one of them is like, I think it's in Oregon. I'm almost sure it's in Oregon. There's like a facility where you can be like, created to but be create like mycelium. It's
Mm.
something like you, instead of being cremated, you're like given back to the earth and having fungi grow all over you. So you end up, after life becoming a fungi yourself. So
Mm.
I don't know
Interesting.
the process. I saw a headline about it being like this like a place for folks for that. Instead of
Mm.
being buried in a casket, help take care of the earth.
So
And
would you be in, I don't know, in some sort of a package with spores? I don't know how that would work. Just dump
no,
some
I just
spores in
want
a
I want
box. You're like,
yeah
put it in a
yeah.
plant box. You're good. Put some
Good.
dirt on
Yeah,
it.
like I don't know the earth, somewhere I haven't thought this one out, which is probably the bottom. It's not the bottom. It's at the bottom of the list of ideas, but
Hmm.
I would like to have funeral services here in New York, where
Mm.
it's not like the traditional ones we're accustomed to, where you go to the wake and we mourn, and I would like it to be
Mm.
more of a spiritual thing where we introduce psilocybin into the celebration of their departure.
Mm.
And then, so again, there would be psilocybin, maybe some psychedelics involved, depending on where the law goes here in New York.
Mm.
Um, but then also the other part is that instead of burying your loved one, that whatever the process is to put you back in the earth to provide fungi or whatever benefit the the body provides after it passes, to
Yeah.
be put back in the earth. So
I mean, honestly, since I was a kid, I always felt like it was a waste to put a body in a casket in the ground. I'm like, well, why would you just leave, like it's almost like a landfill?
Yeah.
honestly. And in my mind, as a,
Yeah.
10, 12-year-old, I always thought that like graveyards felt like a landfill, because it's like you have this garbage that's in the ground, like this casket that no one's going to use, or a pine box. I don't know if you're buried with those caskets or not, but you're in this pine box that you're not going to use, and the people aren't being like, reprocessed into the ground. Like,
And
wouldn't
they're
you?
not being recycled.
Not recycled at all. It's like, wouldn't you want to?
Compost. We should be
Yeah,
compost.
something.
It's
Yeah, but I feel like, I don't know. I guess
a touchy
that's,
subject too for some.
yeah. I guess that's something to people that don't want to bury their loved ones. Want to keep them in the most pristine condition, and all that with formaldehyde and everything. It's like, I tell my mom all the time. I'm like, don't bother bury me. Just, I don't know, burn me up, plant me
Yeah.
under a tree. I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
I just don't want to be in a box in the ground, just wasting, like
Yeah.
wasting my life force in a box. Like, I want
Yeah.
it to be in the soil.
Spread wherever. Yeah, exactly. So I feel the same way. And so,
Mm,
I don't, these are some of the things that I'd like to do, but it also mainly, and that's what my organization is focusing on, is just
yeah.
education, healing, and advocacy, because
Mm,
we've been programmed to think that this fungi, psilocybin, psychedelics, they're all bad for you, just like marijuana is bad, bad,
mm,
bad. But there are really amazing benefits, and our ancestors have known this, before us. And unfortunately, though, this country, especially with the racism, with all our current racist policies that still exist, and the ones that
mm,
existed before, have gotten to this point of, um, I don't want to call them drugs, that these medicines are bad for us, and we've labeled them as a drug because of giving it this bad name,
mhm, mhm,
when it's actually healing it's medicine and it's healing us. But for some reason, the people in power don't want to see us heal, and I'm not a fan of that. So I'm trying to educate, while I'm educating the community as
mhm,
much as possible on a lot of different things, especially cannabis, especially with the new legalization passing here in New York City, New York State. Um, educating them on these benefits, and let's stop, for lack of a better word, being ignorant at this
mhm.
point on this. There's so much information. We have Google. Like, Google's
Yeah.
available right there.
Yeah.
You could
All of
find
it.
all of it
The
there.
world is at your fingertips, and you choose not to read it. Okay.
Yeah, and you
Okay.
know damn well that your great 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 grandmother, if she was alive
Mhm.
right now, she'd tell you what the fuck is wrong with you. Listen.
Mhm.
It's, listen to us. The spirits are telling us that this is great. They're communicating through the mushroom, and that's why when you take it, you feel so good. And sometimes, depending where you're at, they might be telling you something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely had some messages for sure, during my experience with my ceremony experience. And I did not know that's how mushrooms would affect me. But it was, yeah, it's true. It's like and that's what I love about psychedelics, is that you will have these moments where, say, you've struggled with something your entire life, something mental or something, physical that ends up being mental or whatever. Um, and you'll get the answer with psychedelics. Like, it'll just pop in, like, oh, remember that, that issue you're always having? It's not an issue
Mhm.
anymore because this is the cause and you've already solved it. So you don't have to hold on to that. And I'm just like, okay, cool, done. And then you don't have that problem anymore. And it's just so simple. And it's something about that information coming from yourself with the
Yes.
tool of psychedelics that just helps. It helps more than, I think, talk therapy, helps more
Mhm.
a prayer circle in church. It helps
Yes.
so much
Yes.
more, honestly.
Everybody needs shrooms. Everybody needs shrooms.
everybody
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 needs
needs.
psychedelics, and everybody needs it. And
Mhm,
just like what you said, is something I do too now. Like, even when I haven't taken any, and that's another thing. You're not like, I
mhm,
need to take mushrooms. I need to take it.
mm-mm,
It's
not
not.
at all.
You don't feel like that. And so, even when I'm not taking them, and they're, specifically in March, I was going through a moment where I don't know why I was so emotional for 2 weeks,
Mhm,
and I had to have it helped me, and I wasn't taking any shrooms. But because the effects are long. It's this long lasting effect, and I was having a conversation with myself to really ask why is this bothering you so much? Because I have to recognize we also come from a lot of trauma. It's in our DNA and then our lived experiences. And I was asking myself, am I reacting this way because this is how I'm used to it being,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't mean that that's how it's working. So it like really helped me
Oh. Mm-hmm.
come down and just really start being more mindful of why I was reacting towards things a certain way. And then I got my answer, and then it was,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, see, and then now, like, and then a week after, I was like, oh, I was like, wow, and those 2 weeks felt like forever. um, but and then everything was like, wow, so yeah, I just felt more clear, and I was able to, even though I was, feeling the emotions, I was able to just maintain it and not let it take over me like I have in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also something that I recognize with psilocybin and addiction. Like so I still drink now. I'm not saying it's completely stopped, but I would say my drinking a year ago was so much more heavy than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I was like a functioning alcoholic, and people were like, "You're not an alcoholic." I was like,
He's like,
I
you
could,
don't know me.
yeah, you saw me there, but who knows how many drinks I had before this meeting. But because it was a way I was trying to cope and deal with what I was about to get into. So
Mm,
if I had to go deal with, electeds or police or on any of this, I was like, I don't want to have to go in there with a sober mind because I felt like crap, and
mm,
alcohol numbed it for a little bit, but then you don't feel the same way you do. In my experience with psilocybin and psychedelics,
mm,
after you take it one time, two times, with me with alcohol, you kind of probably get worse. You get like more in
mhm.
a funk.
For sure. I mean, yeah, depending, especially, I mean, I don't know if I would call myself an alcoholic, but last year I definitely, with all the downtime we've had, was having drinks, multiple drinks every day for at least 3, 4 months straight, like every day. And I would get into these depressive states afterward, after, I don't know what to call it, a come down, because it's not like it wasn't a high. I mean,
Yeah, it's
alcohol already is like a depressant, you know what I mean? And then once it cycles through your body for that day, it's like, oh, now I'm feeling like shit, which will make you drink more. So I was like, well, let me have another drink in the
mm-hmm.
evening and I'll feel better. And then that one will lead to like five. It just was this cycle. But yeah, like same as you, like this year, I mean, I drank quite a bit the first week of January, but since then it's been so sporadic. I haven't, and even if I do have a drink, like I went out to a bar um a few days ago, not last week, a few days ago, and I had half a beer and I'm already getting loopy. I'm like, wow, I can't have another. So I had a second one, but I don't know if I finished it. I was just like, because I'm just so used to, just have another. But two in, I was done. I was ready to like, bounce. And I was surprising for me because I'm just not used to that.
Yeah, same here. Like I don't have these urges to,
Mm-hmm.
in the same way I had them in the past to just drink for
Mm-hmm.
no reason sometimes. It's
And
just
that was after mushrooms, after the ceremony. Like before then, it was, I don't know, it's just like this on a not necessarily on a conscious level, but like, you know how you can feel what your body needs.
mm-hmm.
In those moments, I could feel like my body was like, "Yeah, you don't really need this," and I'm like, I'm just like, "Okay, I don't have to." And like, it's easy to like, not pay attention to your body and just do whatever you feel like you want to do. But I think I'm getting better at paying attention to my intuition more, paying attention to my body more, listening to my body more, and that was definitely one of those things. But kudos to you for noticing that difference and having it be beneficial for you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us are dealing with a lot of things, and it could
Mm-hmm.
be so beneficial for them as well if they
Mm-hmm.
just be open minded and not just stick to information that one, the government,
Old
is mostly
information.
responsible for providing this bad narrative around a lot of these medicines.
Mm.
And just like hear from people who I would consider myself an expert, at this point,
Mm.
even though I'm still practicing and learning a lot. But I would say like I don't have no intents to steer anyone in any bad direction or cause any harm to anyone.
Mm.
So I feel like that should be one of the main things. That if like, I'm not trying to cause harm, so that should be the first reason you should consider wanting to listen and get educated, and
Mm.
also just we should want to heal, but it's hard because a lot of us don't even want to admit that we're trying to heal from something. We're always okay. I'm doing fine. I'm great.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
okay.
yeah. How are you? Fine. Yeah. Are you?
Everything is great. The house is burning, but they're fine. I was one
This
of
is
those
fine.
people too. I was like, I'm fine. I'm fine. Now I'm like, no, I'm not fine. And I'm not, I'm dealing with
Mhm.
it.
And that's
So,
another thing too, like just, you know, being part of a community, a psychedelic community, it's opened up my world to people that are willing to listen when you're not fine. That's something I realize, because I'm usually the one that's like, the earpiece for my friends. I'm listening to their
mhm,
issues, offering advice if they ask, or just just listening in general. But then I really don't have anyone to listen to me, because I'm so busy listening to them. You know what I mean, and their issues. And what I found in the psychedelic community is like there are a lot more empaths, a lot more people that are in touch with their emotion. And I think that's my groceries. So I'll be right back. What was I saying?
I'm talking about
Um,
that. Now you have more folks to talk
ooh,
to being in the psychedelic circle.
yeah. Yeah, I kind of lost steam on that, but but yeah, essentially, I'm just really excited to be in this community of people that are more open to just emotions, and not being afraid to say I need help, or not being afraid of saying like this is how I'm feeling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I've dealt with so many relationships where people just weren't honest with themselves. You know what I mean? And and for once, I'm glad I'm not listening to more. I don't know. I'm having people bounce back, the same care that I give, and that's what's been
Yes,
really gratifying
yeah,
in this society.
that is important. Sometimes we don't realize that also is really helpful, beneficial for our mental health. That we have
Mm-hmm.
partnerships and relationships, friendships with folks where we're able to balance that. It's not just like one,
Yeah, and for
situation.
growth as well, and for
Yeah,
growth for sure, because it's like it's not one sided. It's an exchange, and
yeah,
it's been really beneficial.
yeah.
Um,
No, and
yes.
I feel the same way. And then also like compared to like other circles that I've been in communities, like even the cannabis community,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean like on not my cannabis community in my community, but the cannabis community, the other cannabis
Mm.
community, it's not the same feeling. And I'm just wondering if
I mean,
it's
like
because
cannabis advocates
yeah,
community.
like other, I don't know. It's just the and not all, but the energy just feels different.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I wonder if it's due to, because in the cannabis, obviously folks are just, not to say they're only doing weed, but majority are just focused on marijuana.
mm-hmm,
Psilocybin is not, or psychedelics is not necessarily something that they even touch.
mm-hmm.
And then here, dealing in the psychedelics world, everyone is just, peace and love, it feels. Not all the time, obviously. It's not
Mm-hmm.
a perfect world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the energy is just so different versus the other spaces. And I wonder if it's because we're all on psilocybin or some sort of psychedelic or
Maybe.
microdosing. And so our energy is a little different.
Yeah.
Not perfect, but different. So
Mm-hmm.
it does make me feel good to be part of these both
Very
communities,
true.
but
Mm-hmm.
I feel more welcome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Also, I think there's a huge difference with when you're consuming versus creating. And I feel like with the advocacy groups, people are wanting to create change, wanting to create programs and create different things. And with the other, it's more like, I have this thing that I'm just going to take and partake in. And that's kind of where it ends. And I think that's kind of a different mentality, I think.
Hmm.
But I know, that's neither here nor there. But there's something I was going to ask you. Because you're talking about traditionally why it's important to destigmatize psychedelics, especially in, like you're saying, in the Latina community, same in the Black community, and I think a lot of that is due to, yes, like the law and also religion as well. Like I
Hmm.
know for me, I mean, I don't know about you, but I grew up in church and I was constantly told every Sunday, drugs are bad and psychedelics are terrible because they possess you and they will invite demons into your soul.
Hmm. My
So
mom told me yoga invited demons. Like,
yeah. I told my friend I was starting a new meditation practice and she was like, "What's that devil stuff?" I'm like, "Wow, really?" And it wasn't like she was like an older lady. We were teenagers. And I was like, "I just want to quiet my mind because, I sometimes I have this issue where I overthink and overprocess ridiculous
no, I
amounts."
have that.
So so I'm like, if I could just work to like practice to quiet my mind just so I can get through my day. And I was telling her this, and like I was saying before, like I'm so used to being the person to listen to everyone else's issues. So when I'm telling her my issue, I get rejected. And she's like, "What's that devil stuff?" I'm just like, "Nah, I'm just trying to tell you about my issue." Just little support.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think that's definitely a huge hurdle as far as destigmatization.
yeah, and it's not. Yeah,
And that's so
it,
deeply ingrained too.
it's so when we were, and I was doing. I used to have a worker co-op. I was a founder of a worker co-op, a Women of Color Marijuana Worker Co-op, which
Mhm,
again also focused on education and advocacy around cannabis. It
mhm,
was, and so we had a lot of workshops in the community, and we had one at a senior center, and we had like CPD experts come, and
mhm,
small businesses. Of folks who had, like, one woman had a vegan CPD cheese that was amazing. So she was able to
mm,
even talk about the benefits of vegan and CPD, and she was Latina. So it was just really great to that group of people, because at first they came in, ay, ese marijuana, es malo, and that was it. They'd rather you be a drunk than
mhm.
a weed
At least
smoker.
that's understandable.
Yeah. And because, again, they've had this idea that marijuana is bad. And, in the 30s, they were like, marijuana is going to kill, it makes you kill people. And so,
Mhm.
reefer madness. And so
Yeah.
that's where that comes from. And, just like urban legends, they just
Mhm.
end up being forever
One
sometimes.
person jumped out of a window.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. He was
Yeah.
also psychotic to begin with.
So it was really great to see them then really internalize, take the information, and then I think it just really benefited that we were Latinas. It was
Mm,
all women, and majority of the women in the senior center, majority of the seniors in the senior center were women, and again, we were Latin women. I don't know if they would have heard the same message if it were, someone that didn't look like me.
mhm,
And so that's another thing why it's important when I have events in this community, one, that the people leading the events are the people that look like me, who have lived in who know, who've experienced all the things in the community, who could identify what it is to be a person of color,
mhm,
and that there's language access. Because it's important for us to have these events in English and Spanish. I would love to have Chinese too.
mhm,
Working on that, but the events that I host, always make sure they're English and Spanish, especially
mhm,
since, at least in the cannabis world, the most people who've been targeted in the prohibition of marijuana were Black and Latinos. And so I like to
mhm.
make sure that they understand what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like also when you have someone there that you can relate to, it makes it that much easier to hold a bit of trust and understand much more than if it was someone you absolutely did not.
Mm,
But which is something I'm finding with. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Robin Divine of Black People Trip.
mm,
This is something that Robin has been wanting to, I don't want to say correct, but just wanting to provide like services for Black and Brown people, because it's something that sometimes we need our own spaces. There's some things that we go through that we can't speak on. Like for me and with my psilocybin ceremony, I had some very like deeply personal kind of things I wanted to speak to the facilitator about, and I just felt like she couldn't relate because she was like a
mm.
blonde white woman, and it was no shade to her, and it's not like she couldn't understand me as a person, but like deep down that feeling, I don't think she could really grasp it. Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
And because I was dealing with, I was having ancestors crop up, and having to explain the connection and the just the feeling of not feeling as lost, because I've come, my background, of course, being Black in America, is a portion of my family has been cut off because of slavery and not knowing the language, not knowing where I come from. So it was hard explaining. It wasn't hard for me to explain it, but it was hard for me to believe that she actually understood how impactful that ceremony was for me. I
Yeah.
think if I was in a space with a Black facilitator, they'd understand 100%. And they may even have like homework for me after, you know what I mean? To
Mm-hmm.
like keep cultivating and speaking with my ancestors. But, I left there kind of having to do that work on my own, which is fine. I don't mind having to do the research, and I don't need someone to tell me what to do. But I think it would have been more helpful to have someone there that really understood, you
Yeah,
know?
and someone that is, because yes, they, someone that's humble and like again, that they don't have to be healed completely themselves, but they also have to be able to hold themselves accountable and identify areas where they could be, abusive or oppressive. Because
Mm-hmm.
I have been, and obviously I've worked under leadership where the woman looked just like me, Latina, badass,
Mm-hmm.
and she caused me so much traumatic harm that to this day it sometimes it creates a trauma or triggers
Mm-hmm.
that time in my life of all the abuse she put me under, but then was out here like we need to end, we're here fighting for social justice, and but then this, so I think also that the people who are doing this also recognize their own um, things that they're working on. I don't want to call them faults, just stuff that they're working on and
Mm-hmm.
practicing what they preach, I guess, too. And like,
Yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of shadow work we have to deal with. And so that's another important thing for me because,
Mm.
you know, for me, at least in my experience, because then it just makes me then give, if even if the person identifies and looks like me, but then, while I'm sharing, makes me feel like they're judging me and, not making me feel better.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't help with the situation. So I just, it's important that, also folks who are leading this support just also be mindful of these things.
Yeah,
Like even
yeah,
how you talk, like even like active listening is important.
yeah.
Like I have
Absolutely.
conversations with some that like to interrupt and just lead, and it's like, wait a minute, I
Let me
didn't
tell you what
finish.
I've learned. And I'm
Yeah,
just like, okay.
yeah.
I found that. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So you were telling me before that your goal for your next mushroom trip is to take 10 grams.
20, 20,
Wait,
20,
20 grams.
20. Well,
Now, well,
that's like the ceremony one I want to have. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've taken about 10 grams in a day.
Oh, right, right. You told me this. Yeah. Do you think you would ever be able to take at least 10 grams at once? Because usually at ceremony, you take it all at once.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yes, it's just getting past the chewing. It just feels like a lot sometimes. I
Mm,
sometimes I enjoy the flavor. Sometimes I don't. I'll add peanuts,
Mm-hmm.
Or when we went camping, I made a marshmallow.
Marshmallow.
So I just did a s'more. I burnt it up, and it was amazing in that
Mm.
way. So
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely try to do it. The 20 not at once. It would be over the day, but I would do 10 at once,
Mm-hmm.
and I would prefer to do it on a full moon or a new moon.
Ah.
New moon or
Um,
full moon. I'm not, both moons make me happy.
mhm.
And they each mean something different. But for me, I know some people be like, no, the new moon or the full moon's better. I'd be like, whichever moon I can get,
Mhm.
you know, I would set it up around there. Preferably I'd be outdoors. I would love to do it. So maybe this I'm looking to do it when it's warm so I can be out
Mhm.
camping or
Out, yeah,
something.
and
Yeah.
about. I mean, if you
Uh,
do it on a new moon, if you're out camping, that'll
because,
be perfect for like the stars
yeah.
and all of that. Yeah.
So
Oh,
that would probably
amazing.
be why I would do it because of the stars. I don't get to
Mhm.
see the stars in the city often.
Mhm.
So I would have to, obviously go upstate or somewhere. But also I love the brightness of the moon. Like I just love how bright it is. But of course it takes
Mhm.
away from seeing the stars.
Sure. Yeah. For
But
sure.
either way, as long as it's warm, I have access to water, music, fire glazing,
Mhm.
good energy around me. Like I just wanna, you know,
Yeah.
dance. I don't
Yeah.
know, who knows? If I don't want to go to sleep though. I've had fallen asleep one time after taking like maybe a gram or two of mushrooms, and I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm gonna dance tonight in my living room, and then started like, I'm going to bed.
I want, but I wonder if there could be something done like that, like a trip to where like there's fire gazing, there's a fire, and then there's like
Where we were this
okay,
past
so
weekend.
we went okay, so to everybody listening, just clarifying, we're both thinking about how we went camping the other weekends and had so much fun, and I learned about fire glazing then when you had your marshmallow, your marshmallow.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking like how amazing that was to just sit around a fire, and like even how more amazing would be to have like a circle of women, and then like I don't know, instruments who were making music, or like when we are dancing
Jump in the
and
lake that was there,
oh
the
yeah,
little
the little pond, yeah, and that was
pond.
shallow, so
Yeah.
you couldn't drown. That no, that would be really good. The only thing that worries me about that pond in the summer, though, is that it's kind of still water. I'd want to put like some sort of a
Mm,
pump in it so it doesn't get
mhm.
mosquitoes. But other than
Yes.
that, that's perfect. I think you got the fire, you got the water, you're already on the earth, and you got the air, the sky on a new moon. So it's like all
Mhm.
four elements.
All the elements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, my hippie's coming out.
Yeah, no, and that's how I want to live all the time, actually, in a
Hmm.
tree house.
Yeah.
Some just have the space to do that,
Yeah.
because it's important for our mental health. And we shouldn't have to like pay thousands of dollars or have thousands of dollars to be able to get some good self care, where you could have resources like a pond, or
Hmm.
have psilocybin available as any psychedelics. We need that, so be able to grow our own stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it should be no issue for everyone, at least in a city, to grow mushrooms on their windowsill. It seems so bizarre that that's a crime. You know what I mean? Oh, you
Mm.
can't grow mushrooms, you can't grow weed, you can't do this, can't do that. I'm like, okay,
Well,
well,
now we can grow weed,
well, yeah, well,
now.
we can in a few short months, right?
Yeah, in a few,
Like,
well, yeah, like maybe like 18 months, but yes,
yeah.
we will soon be able to grow weed. But yeah, it should just be able to grow your own shit.
Mm.
Whatever helps you with your healing, So, but capitalism doesn't work.
Yeah, well, that's the real reason why it's bad.
Yeah.
And I haven't done the research on it, but I was watching a podcast, and the reason why weed was bad and why Reefer Madness came out and why the whole thing against that came out was something to the fact of that how was it hemp would compete with either the paper company or the cotton company. I can't remember which it was, but one of them was like on the rise, going to be really big. and hemp was competing because it was a better fiber,
Yeah.
as a more sustainable, more grew faster. It was a more just durable fiber. And because of that, to cut the competition, they're like, oh, well, you know what hemp is? Hemp is marijuana. And that's how that the two plants kind of got, convoluted into one. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately.
Yeah. That's always what it's been. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
a few years ago, I was a big Ron Paul supporter who was a Republican from
Mm-hmm.
Texas.
I remember. Yeah.
Um, and he's been talking about legalizing all drugs for years now, since the 80s. He's ran for president 3 times, and back in the 80s when he was running, then he
Mm-hmm.
was really big on ending the war on drugs. And people like the Dare people were like, at this interview, you see him like yelling at him. Like, people don't know this in New York City, or I don't know where else she is, but
Mm-hmm.
Lisa Everts, what is
Mm.
it, Street Soldiers? Lisa Everts she's, I believe she's the wife of the Guardian Angels guy, whatever his name is.
Oh. Mm.
And in
Because I knew
this,
the Everett's name. Yeah.
yeah, she's got like she's a radio. I don't know her exact title, but I know she's been on Hot 97.
Mm-hmm.
She's been on some of the local networks. But to hear like the story she covers now,
Mm-hmm.
and to know her background is crazy to me, because you watch this where Ron Paul is talking about legalizing all drugs. It was like 1987 or something, and the Dare
Mm-hmm.
campaign was heavy back
Mm-hmm.
then, to say
I
no to
had a T-shirt
drugs.
as a kid.
Yeah. And she was a guardian angel because she was the girlfriend or the wife or whatever she was at the time to the
Mm-hmm.
leader. And she is just there, like, going in about how stupid he is, that
Mm-hmm.
drugs are bad, and what do we want? The kids this, the kids that. It
Mm-hmm.
was really crazy to see her speak the way she was speaking, and then now see her where she's at. I forgot why I brought that all up, but because Ron Paul also would talk about the beneficials of hemp,
Mm-hmm.
and because I didn't know hemp was something that could be used to build. It could be used for so much things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he would speak about that. That's why, it was outlawed, it was prohibited because of, you know, the people
The
couldn't make their money, but there was
Yeah,
so much great
exactly.
benefits to it.
Exactly. But now, that's something I did want to ask is from you having your psychedelic experience to you founding what the fungi. How did that go about? Like, how did the transition from, oh, now I see, I won't see pink elephants, we may, but they won't be scary, on psilocybin, to being the founder of what the fungi.
It was just consuming them more, learning,
Mm-hmm.
just being open, listening to them. That, more when I was taking it up, microdosing on a constant basis, it was speaking to me and telling me, you need to, this is how you're going to, everything you, and then it helped me reflect, in my younger years, things that I've done. I've always been a
Mm-hmm.
fighter, and I think it's partially too because I'm an Aries. Um, and so unity, fighting, and healing has always been part of my life. And by constant, being a part of the fungi world, it was telling me, this is going to be a tool to help you heal the
Mm-hmm.
people. You're not going to heal everybody, but you can heal, a good group, a good enough people. I can heal, and maybe not limit myself. I can heal the world. It's just gonna take time, and I'm gonna start off with, baby steps. And so that's where it was like, so how are you going to heal the world,
Mm-hmm.
and educate? And it was like, you got to start an organization um, that does this, also because, I mean, I honestly I'm not a materialistic person. So I really, people will be like, oh, I don't care about money, but I
Mm-hmm.
understand it's necessary to get some stuff, like in order for me to grow my shrooms, but it requires me to have some sort of
Mm-hmm.
finances. But like, I was like, why do I gotta start anything? Can't that just be this? And it was just like, no, how tax purposes, but it's really just meant to just like start creating alternative spaces, healing spaces. I don't want to call them clinics,
Mm-hmm.
healing spaces for folks who are dealing with life, who are dealing with the trauma and that's transferred into our DNA from, our family's tree line, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to create a healing space. And so it was just saying, this is it. So you got to get what the fungi going, because then when the government works too, they're going to acknowledge only these Ivy League,
Mm-hmm.
institutes, like they're the experts. When here I am, one, not only, I'm an advocate, but I am a consume, I consume it and I grow it, I share it,
I guess
um,
that's the rub, right? It's like, well, I
yeah.
have it. I have the access to it. I know what the people need. Why am I being prevented to help heal? Why? That's the big question, you
Yeah.
know?
So that's what is that's so that was that moment. Like, this is it. This is one of the tools, along with cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of, and there's other psychedelics I know that are also really beneficial, like ashwagandha, and others that I've not tried yet.
What's
And I look forward.
ashwagandha?
So, oh, that's a mushroom. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Sorry, but other psychedelics that are out there, like the LSD, I've done like maybe total 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, if you count when we were away this past week, that weekend, I took more that weekend than I've ever taken. Um,
As did
yeah.
I.
and so so I can't really speak to the other ones yet, but if
Mhm.
I understand psilocybin enough, what this has done, and if those others that folks in the same psychedelic world are talking about, that they are experts and knowledgeable on, are saying the same, then I'm like, this is
Mhm.
it. Because again, I'm not a big fan of government, although people be like, but Pilar, you're always lobbying this and that.
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, because you have to play chess. But these
Mhm.
politics in this country are terrible. And in my personal opinion, I think government is the root of all our problems. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, because they're regulating everything, telling you, well, you can
everything,
do
making
this, you
it
can't do that. And I was like, okay, well,
barrier this,
why are you
barrier
telling
that,
me?
go to jail, you're a bad person. It's
Mhm.
just violent, in my opinion. And so
Yeah.
I needed to establish, something for the community and help inspire others also to build whatever, if this is what they're passionate about, build it out. Why do we have to always work for someone else too?
Mhm.
Be owners, be entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
You're an expert in your whatever you're skilled at, be that expert, own it. Because we also have been like taught in this society to be workers for everyone else
Worker
instead of,
bee, yeah. Yeah.
and got to be owners and take care of one another and do it in, unity. We got to
And
be like the Care Bears.
the Care Bears, yes. Can you briefly tell us about the Care Bear analogy?
Yeah. So, and this came out of, I mean, it could apply to everything, but it came out the cannabis circle. We were having conversations because it's been feeling a little, cutthroat in some areas. So it was a
Mhm.
conversation around unity. And I'm just like, we all, and this is applies in everything actually. We all have a different skill set. People can grow, people can build,
Mhm.
people are good at being connectors. There's so much things, and there's even things that we don't even know that we're good at because we don't know how to identify it.
Mhm.
But just like the Care Bears, if we all just like, they have their little
Little
logo
emblem.
symbol in the front, and get all unite, if we all just line up
Mhm.
together and just Care Bear stare, we can be pretty powerful at taking down a lot of these systems and structures
Mhm.
that continue to oppress us and continually violently harm us and molest us.
Mhm.
Um, because but that's why we all need shrooms, because we are still living in this capitalistic authoritarian type of world
Mhm.
that everyone just, I gotta get to the top and then I'll come back for you, and instead of us just working
Yeah,
together. And that's
together
also
to get there.
something that psilocybin, I feel, and psychedelics help, helps with that shadow work, the ego, the
Mhm.
pride.
Mhm.
I think we need ego, it's just we have too much of it.
Yeah, I mean that's I've always had that idea. Like people start talking about ego death and how important it is to have ego death. I was like, yeah, but you don't want to completely kill the ego. Not it's not even necessarily bad in so many words. It's just something that's there that keeps you in check a certain kind of way. Um, yeah, and the same thing about I was speaking to someone about I can't remember what the subject was, but talking about eliminating all negativity. And I was like, but some negativity you need. Some you need to know to keep you on the right path. But no, you need some negativity. Like you need, before a rainbow it rains, you don't know happiness unless you have sadness, that sort of situation. So I think in the same
Yeah,
sense, you need ego in that sense. You need to know your shadow side in order to understand how you can be better than that. But yeah.
yeah. And what has even pushed like what I want to do for the community, like what the Fungi is more like for my, again for education and able to do this work in the communities. But I
Mm,
have like larger ideas, like space I actually want to build in the community here in East Harlem. That's where I live, born and
mhm,
raised in East Harlem. 125th Street has always been bad, but it's gotten worse. A lot of folks who have, unfortunately chosen to go down a path of other medicine,
mhm,
drugs, that is harming them, not actually healing them. And it's, people like to refer to 125th Street as the Walking Dead, like zombies.
mm,
People are there, and it's pretty sad. And I understand where that term comes from, but I also find it pretty degrading because these are human beings that there was a point that they couldn't take life no more, and this is the path they chose.
mhm,
Or life created all these barriers, and this is what it is now for them. And so it's a big goal of mine, especially being born and raised here and just it being my community. I want to start in the place that helped build and grow me
mhm,
before I go venture out anywhere else. But I really like I have this space. I have two spaces I want. One, I want to make a worker co-op, and one I want to make a nonprofit. Um, and they will both be around mental health, healing spaces, but would provide other services as well. But it's mainly I want to be like a shroom fairy, a psilocybin
mm.
fairy, to just get folks back. Yeah, I do. I really could see it. Like, here you go. Here's for you. Here's for you. See you tomorrow.
You get 2 grams and you
Um,
get 3 grams and
you
you
get
get 5 grams.
yeah. But I don't know. I don't think the government will be too happy with me that I did this. It's not the traditional way. So that's really a big goal is to start helping our communities heal, because if we don't heal from all of this, we can't continue to ask people to keep fighting for their rights, and it's like it's terrible. It's like
Mhm,
asking them to fight while they're beat up and they're like their leg is broken, they can't
mhm.
see, their eyes have been jammed out, like
But
how
keep
are they
fighting.
yeah,
Yeah.
keep fighting though, and they're like falling apart.
Mhm,
And so that, and because again, like it's just cheesy, but I do a lot of the work not only because I'm passionate. I don't have any children, but I have nieces and nephews, and I'm very passionate about their future
mhm,
and their upbringing. And unfortunately, the society and their upbringing is going to have an effect on them. It's having an effect. My sister,
mhm,
unfortunately, is not in a healthy space. I'm actually trying to get her to start microdosing her on a daily basis, like, and
mhm,
monitoring her,
mhm,
because she's dealt with a lot in life that she's never healed from. So she's gotten
mhm,
herself into a lot of negative spaces. I won't call them bad, but very negative places where it's not helping her and it's not
mhm,
helping her children,
mhm,
unfortunately.
mhm,
And they're, especially my middle one, I mean, they're all going to need a lot of healing, the type of healing that I'm talking about, not taking them to a clinician, but they're going to need a lot of healing. And you know, it's for the children of this future. Like the kids coming up right now are seeing so much. So they're going through a lot. Even I don't even know what it's like to have to live through COVID as a child or a teenager, where you can't go play in the park, you
mhm,
can't play in the dirt, you can't play with
mhm,
your friends, you got to wear masks. People are, it's just crazy. I can't imagine they can't have teenagers. What does a social life look like? You can't get, I don't, it's not the same when I was growing up, as we all know. All our parents would tell us that too when they were growing up. But like
mhm,
even more, like I can't imagine what traumatic harm this is causing their mental health. And then on top of a lot of our broken homes, these cycles of broken homes that we keep even kind of like promoting, like these celebrities, they love to promote. I think life is great. Bringing life into this world is great, but if we're bringing it based on healthy relationships, and a majority of what I see are very unhealthy relationships because a lot of us have not healed, and we're so used to being in unhealthy relationships because that's in our DNA. And
Yeah,
it really is.
carrying it on, the cycle continues. Yeah, you gotta break the cycle for sure.
So we need shrooms.
We all need shrooms. I concur. All
That's
right.
my
Oh
hashtag.
gosh.
Shrooms for everyone. Everyone needs
Yeah.
shrooms.
Oh my gosh. But thank you so much for this. This has been really great, really fun.
Thank you for
And I
having me.
definitely learned quite a bit more about mushrooms this episode than I have since starting, I guess, my mushroom journey. But where can people find out about What the Fungi? Is there a website, Instagram, anything like that?
Wow, guys, so that's another thing. I need a graphic designer. I need a social
Mm-hmm.
media content person. But you
Yeah.
could you could definitely email me at whatthefungiNYC@gmail.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have you follow my personal page because it's easier to connect with me there because my business pages are still being developed. That's the problem when you're working a full-time job and then
Yes.
advocating on so many things.
Absolutely.
You're like, how do you get this done? I don't know if you guys are familiar. Selena, I'm very much like Selena. I think I can do it all. And I got to take step backs, which is what the psilocybin also keeps telling me, like, Pilar,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing it again. But yeah, email my personal page, which is Pilars, Pilars
Mm-hmm.
underscore Orenda, Orenda. Yeah, you could DM me there, or email me at my Gmail.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all, again, I didn't mention the other hats I wear, but I also sit on the board for New York City Norml. I'm
Mm-hmm.
an advocacy coordinator for TakeRoot Justice, a
Nice.
board vice president for East Harlem Preservation. I'm
Wow.
the founder of all that jive, which is
Many
like
hats.
yeah. So you have questions, I may know the answer, or I find you the person who knows the answer if I don't have it. So
Nice.
not limited it to psilocybin is what I'm trying to say.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again.
And I'm a nudist, so if you do follow my page, anticipate here and there that I might be nude.
There might be a nip slip here and there.
Yes.
Intentional.